For thousands of years, humanity looked toward the stars and wondered if they were alone. They searched the universe for answers. They built machines to explore distant worlds. They sent messages into the darkness, hoping someone would hear them. But nobody ever imagined that something was already watching. Something ancient, something powerful, something that had been waiting beneath the surface of Earth for a moment that had finally arrived. And now, that moment was here. The archive had opened. The impossible structure buried beneath the mountains was no longer a legend. It was real, but the discovery that should have been humanity's greatest achievement suddenly became the greatest danger they had ever faced. Because the moment the archive awakened, something else awakened with it. Something that even the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy feared. The architects. And as the unknown object descended above Earth, every side of the war understood one thing. The rules had changed. The battle was no longer about humans versus dragons. This was something much bigger. Something that could decide the future of the entire galaxy. Captain Ethan Cole stood frozen, staring at the massive object above him. It was impossible to understand its size. It was not a ship, not like the Dragon Empire's war vessels, not like the Sentinel fleets. It looked more like a moving world, a structure created by a civilization that had mastered technology beyond imagination. The surface was covered with ancient patterns and glowing energy lines. It did not look newly built. It looked ancient, older than human history, older than any civilization humanity had ever discovered. Around Ethan, soldiers remained silent. Nobody gave orders. Nobody moved. Because for the first time since the invasion began, humans were not looking at an enemy. They were looking at something they could not understand. Alairon continued staring at the object. His expression had changed completely. The confident sentinel who had faced dragons without fear was gone. In his place stood someone who had just seen a ghost from the past. Ethan noticed immediately. You know what that is? It was not a question. Alairon remained silent. The silence itself was an answer. Ethan stepped closer. Alairon. The sentinel finally looked at him. And for a moment, Ethan saw something unexpected. Fear. Not because Alairon was weak, but because he knew exactly what was coming. The architects were not supposed to return. The word sent a chill through everyone nearby. Dr. Mitchell looked confused. What do you mean return? Alairon looked toward the enormous structure. The architects disappeared millions of years ago. Every advanced civilization in the galaxy believed they were gone forever. Ethan looked back at the object. Then why are they here now? Alairon did not answer immediately, because the answer was something even he did not want to say. Finally, he spoke. Because the archive called them. The entire area went silent. The archive called them. The meaning behind those words was terrifying. The archive was not just a hidden place. It was not just ancient technology. It was connected to something much bigger, something alive, something powerful. Inside the Dragon Command Fortress, the reaction was completely different. The moment the unknown structure appeared, every dragon stopped moving. Even Varkin, the supreme commander of the Dragon Empire, stared at the object in disbelief. For years, he had believed the archive would give his empire ultimate power. He believed it would make the Dragon Empire unstoppable. But now, seeing the object above Earth, he realized something. The archive was never a weapon. It was a doorway to something that even dragons feared. Kaeldar stood beside him silently. Varkin finally spoke. You knew this could happen. Kaeldar did not deny it. I suspected. Anger appeared in Varkin's eyes. You brought us here knowing this risk existed? The ancient dragon looked at him. You think I wanted this? For the first time, Kaeldar sounded angry. You believe the Dragon Empire is powerful. You believe we control the galaxy. But compared to them, he looked toward the giant structure. We are nothing. The word shocked every dragon in the command room. The Dragon Empire feared almost nothing. Yet now their strongest warriors looked uncertain. Because Kaeldar was not afraid of losing a battle. He was afraid of something much worse. He was afraid of what would happen if the architects truly returned. Back on Earth, the archive entrance continued opening. The ancient mechanisms moved slowly. Each movement created a deep vibration, across the mountains. The doorway revealed a tunnel leading downward, but there was something strange about it. There was no dust, no damage, no signs of age. After millions of years, the entrance looked untouched, as if someone had been maintaining it, waiting. Dr. Mitchell studied the structure. This technology is impossible. Alaron looked at her. No, the scientist turned. What? The Sentinel looked toward the entrance. It is not impossible. It is simply beyond your time. That sentence stayed in Ethan's mind because he realized something. Humanity had always measured progress by what they could create. But now they were standing in front of something created by beings who were millions of years ahead, and they were about to enter. A sudden alarm interrupted them. The dragon fleet had arrived. The sky changed instantly. Thousands of massive wings covered the clouds. The sound of dragon roars echoed across the mountains. The ground shook from their arrival. The battle that everyone expected had finally begun. Varkin's forces surrounded the area from every direction. Human soldiers prepared their weapons. Sentinels activated their armor. Everyone knew what was coming. A war unlike anything Earth had ever seen. But then something unexpected happened. The dragons did not attack. They simply watched. Confusion spread among the human forces. Ethan looked toward Alaron. Why aren't they firing? The Sentinel looked at the dragons. Then he understood. They are waiting. For what? Alaron's expression became serious. For the same thing we are. Before Ethan could respond, a message appeared on every communication system. Human devices, Sentinel technology, dragon networks. Every screen showed the same symbol. The symbol from the archive. Then a voice appeared. A voice that did not sound human. It did not sound like a dragon. It sounded ancient, like something that had been silent for millions of years. The message was simple, but it changed everything. The search has ended. The chosen world has been found. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then the voice continued. The trial will begin. And at that moment, everyone understood. The archive was never a treasure. It was never a weapon. It was a test. And Earth was the place where that test would begin. The message disappeared, but the silence it left behind felt heavier than any explosion. The trial will begin. Those words repeated inside everyone's mind. Human soldiers looked at each other, trying to understand what they had just heard. The dragons remained in the sky. The Sentinels stood motionless. And humanity stood between two powerful civilizations that had spent centuries fighting each other. Yet now, for the first time, both sides were facing something they did not understand. The archive had not opened to give someone power. It had opened to judge them. Captain Ethan Cole looked toward Alaron. What trial? The Sentinel did not answer immediately. His eyes remained fixed on the ancient doorway, because deep inside he already knew. The archive was not asking who was the strongest. It was asking something much more dangerous. Who deserved to continue? Finally, Alaron spoke. The architects created the archive for one purpose. Ethan waited. To find civilizations capable of protecting the future. Dr. Mitchell stepped closer. Protecting the future from what? Alaron looked at the sky, at the dragons, at the massive structure above Earth. Then he answered, from themselves. The words confused everyone. But before anyone could ask another question, the ground started shaking again. The archive was reacting. The glowing symbols across the mountain changed. New patterns appeared. Thousands of ancient markings moved across the surface, like a living language. The doorway opened wider, and from inside came a sound. A heartbeat. A slow, powerful heartbeat. Everyone froze. Because the archive was not just a building. It was something else. Something alive. Inside the Dragon Command Fortress, Varkin watched the same event through his holographic display. His confidence had disappeared. The Supreme Commander who had conquered countless worlds now looked uncertain. Kaeldar noticed. You finally understand. Varkin turned toward him. Understand what? The ancient dragon looked at Earth. The archive was never waiting for the strongest. Varkin remained silent. Kaeldar continued. It was waiting for the right ones. The statement angered Varkin. The Dragon Empire has ruled for centuries. We have strength. We have armies. We have power. Kaeldar slowly looked at him. And yet you still fear this place. The room became silent, because nobody could deny it. The Dragon Empire had destroyed civilizations. They had defeated enemies across the galaxy. But standing before the archive, they felt small, very small. Then a new message appeared inside the Dragon command system, not from their own technology. From the archive, the words were clear. Participants identified. A list appeared. Humanity, the Sentinels, the Dragon Empire. Everyone stared. Then another line appeared. Assessment beginning. Varkin's eyes narrowed. The archive was judging them. All of them. Inside Facility 7's transport zone, Ethan prepared his team. Only a small group would enter the archive. Too many people would increase the risk. Too few would reduce their chances. The selected team included Ethan, Dr. Mitchell, several soldiers, and 2 Sentinel representatives. Alaron would lead them before entering. Ethan looked back at the battlefield. Thousands of dragons surrounded them. Human forces prepared defenses. Sentinels stood ready. Everything could change within minutes. Ethan looked at Alaron. What happens if we fail? The Sentinel looked toward the archive entrance. His answer was quiet. Then the archive will decide. Ethan did not like that answer. What does that mean? Alaron paused, then said, the last civilization that failed the trial was removed from history. Nobody spoke. The meaning was clear. Failure was not defeat. Failure was extinction. The team entered the archive. The moment Ethan stepped inside, the outside world disappeared. No dragon sounds. No weapons. No alarms. Only silence. The interior was beyond anything humanity had ever seen. Massive halls stretched into darkness. Walls moved with flowing energy. Ancient symbols floated in the air. The technology did not look mechanical. It looked almost natural, like it had grown instead of being built. Dr. Mitchell whispered, "This place is impossible." Ethan looked around. No, he remembered Alaron's words. Just beyond our time. They continued deeper. Every step activated new sections of the archive. Lights turned on. Hidden pathways opened. The structure was responding to them. Not everyone. Them. A soldier noticed. Captain. Ethan turned. The soldier pointed toward the wall. Images were appearing. Not random images. History. Thousands of civilizations. Thousands of worlds. Some advanced. Some peaceful. Some powerful. Then one by one they disappeared. Dr. Mitchell studied the symbols. It is showing civilizations that failed. Alaron nodded. The images continued. A powerful empire destroyed by its own weapons. A species that conquered everything but destroyed itself. A civilization that gained unlimited technology but lost compassion. The archive was showing them a pattern. Power was not enough. Intelligence was not enough. Technology was not enough. Something else mattered. Then Ethan noticed something. One image was different. A planet. A blue planet. Earth. He stepped closer. Why is Earth here? Nobody answered. The image changed. Ancient humans appeared. Not modern humans. Humans from thousands of years ago. Standing beside something impossible. A symbol. The same symbol from the archive. Ethan stared. That's impossible. Dr. Mitchell looked shocked. Humans were here before. Alaron became silent. Too silent. Ethan immediately noticed. You knew. The Sentinel looked away. You knew humanity was connected to this. Alaron finally answered. Yes. Anger appeared on Ethan's face. You kept this from us. I was not allowed to reveal it. Why? The Sentinel looked directly at him. Because humanity had to discover the truth on its own. Ethan wanted to argue, but before he could, the entire archive shook. A new voice echoed through the halls. First assessment. The team stopped. The voice continued. The species must choose. A giant chamber opened ahead. Inside was a massive platform, and on that platform were 3 symbols. Humanity, the Sentinels, the Dragon Empire. Then the archive spoke again. Only one path may continue. Everyone froze, because now they understood. The trial was not a test of ability. It was a choice. And the wrong choice could decide the fate of the galaxy forever. The chamber inside the archive became completely silent. The three symbols floating above the platform continued glowing in the darkness. Humanity, the Sentinels, the Dragon Empire, 3 civilizations, 3 different histories, 3 different paths. But only one question mattered now. Which one was worthy of continuing? Captain Ethan Cole stared at the symbols, tried to understand the meaning behind the trial. For years, humanity had believed survival depended on strength, technology, and military power. But standing inside the archive, surrounded by the remains of civilizations that had disappeared before them, Ethan realized something terrifying. The universe had already seen countless powerful species rise and fall. Strength alone had never saved anyone. Alaron walked slowly toward the platform. His expression was serious, almost as if he was remembering something from a very distant past. The architects created this trial because every advanced civilization eventually faces the same choice, he said. Ethan looked at him. What choice? The Sentinel looked at the 3 symbols. The choice between control and responsibility. Dr. Mitchell studied the chamber around them. So this is a test of morality? Alaron shook his head. Not exactly. The architects did not care about words. They cared about actions. The lights inside the chamber changed, and suddenly the walls began showing images from the past. The team watched as entire civilizations appear before them. Some had incredible technology. Some had armies that controlled thousands of planets. Some had knowledge beyond imagination. But every civilization shown on the walls eventually reached the same moment, a moment where they had to decide what to do with their power. Some chose to protect weaker worlds. Some chose to dominate them. Some believed they were above everyone else. And every civilization that chose domination disappeared. Ethan looked at the images silently. Then he understood why the archive had brought humans, sentinels, and dragons together. It was not testing who was strongest. It was testing who could be trusted with power. Suddenly, the chamber shook violently. A new symbol appeared above the platform. A symbol nobody recognized. A 4 symbol. Everyone stepped back. Even Alaron looked shocked. That is impossible. Ethan turned toward him. What is it? The Sentinel stared at the unknown symbol. That should not exist. The room became tense. Because if the archive had created a 4th choice, then everything they believed about the trial was wrong. The symbol slowly moved forward. Then the ancient voice returned. Additional participant detected. Nobody spoke. Ethan looked around. Additional participant? Alaron's face changed. For the first time, he looked completely confused. The voice continued. The trial has been modified. The walls of the archive began changing. New images appeared. Not of humans. Not of dragons. Not of sentinels. Something else. A civilization hidden from history. A civilization that even the sentinels had forgotten. Dr. Mitchell whispered. Who are they? Alaron did not answer, because he did not know, and that scared everyone. Outside the archive, the battlefield changed completely. The dragons had stopped their advance. Human forces had stopped firing. Even the sentinel fleets remained still. Every side was watching the same thing. The archive, because something had happened that nobody expected. A new energy signature appeared across Earth. It spread from the mountains into the atmosphere, then into space. Every ship, every weapon, and every communication system was affected. The entire planet was connected to the archive. Humanity felt it. The dragons felt it. The sentinels felt it. And somewhere far away in the galaxy, something else felt it too. A long-forgotten signal had finally been activated. Deep inside an unknown region of space, an ancient structure that had been silent for millions of years began waking up. Machines activated. Lights appeared, and a message was received. The archive has chosen. A figure standing in the darkness opened its eyes. For millions of years, it had waited. For millions of years, it had remained hidden. Now the wait was over. The figure looked toward Earth and quietly said, finally, back inside the archive, Ethan watched as the 4th symbol became brighter. The ancient voice spoke again. The final path is not a species. Everyone froze. The meaning behind those words slowly became clear. The archive was not choosing humans. It was not choosing dragons. It was not choosing sentinels. It was searching for something else. Something that could exist between all three. A bridge, a new beginning, or something completely different. Then the archive revealed the first true secret. The secret that had been hidden since the beginning of time. A message appeared on every wall. A message written in a language that somehow everyone could understand. The architects did not create the archive. Silence. Then the next line appeared. They found it. And in that moment, everyone realized the truth. Even the architects were not the beginning. Something existed before them. Something older. Something that created the mystery they were trying to solve. And now, whatever that ancient force was, it was waking up. The words appeared across the walls of the archive. The architects did not create the archive. Everyone stood frozen. For a moment, nobody understood what they were seeing. The architects were considered the beginning, the first advanced civilization, the creators of impossible technology, the beings who shaped the future of countless worlds. But now the archive was revealing something that changed everything. Even the architects were not the creators. They were explorers. They were seekers. They had found something before anyone else. Something older than them. Something that existed before history itself. Captain Ethan Cole slowly looked at Oleron. You knew there was something before the architects. The Sentinel remained silent. That silence was enough. Ethan's expression changed. How long have you known? Oleron looked down. Not everything. But you knew there were unanswered questions. Dr. Mitchell stepped forward. Why hide this from everyone? Oleron looked at the humans around him. Because every civilization that searched for the truth became obsessed with it. The chamber lights became brighter. Ancient images appeared on the walls again. This time they were different. They were not showing civilizations that failed. They were showing civilizations that searched. Millions of years ago, across countless galaxies, different species, different worlds, all looking for the same thing. The origin, the first creation, the source of all advanced technology. And one by one, every search ended the same way. Silence, disappearance, failure. Ethan watched the images carefully. Something stopped them. Oleron nodded. Yes. What? The Sentinel looked toward the deepest part of the archive. The same thing that is waiting for us now. Before anyone could respond, the entire chamber changed. The three symbols representing humans, dragons, and sentinels disappeared. The fourth unknown symbol moved to the center. The archive was no longer judging three civilizations. It was focusing on something else. A new message appeared. The final participant has been identified. The floor beneath them opened. A pathway appeared. A pathway that was not visible before. It moved deeper into the archive, further than any previous section, further than anyone had expected. The ancient voice spoke again. The one who enters will learn the truth. Everyone looked at the pathway. Nobody moved, because everyone understood the danger. The archive was offering answers, but every answer came with a cost. Ethan looked at his team. They were afraid, but they were still standing. That mattered. Humanity had survived because people stepped forward even when they were afraid. Ethan turned toward Oleron. Who goes first? The Sentinel looked surprised by the question. Then he gave a small nod. You. Ethan frowned. Why me? Oleron looked at the symbol. Because the archive chose you. Ethan looked confused. I am just a soldier. No. Oleron's voice was calm. You are exactly what the archive is looking for. Before Ethan could ask more, a powerful vibration moved through the archive. The walls changed. The message disappeared. A new warning appeared. External forces approaching. Everyone immediately understood. The dragons. They were entering. The trial had begun. But the outside world had not stopped. The Dragon Empire was not waiting forever. Varkin wanted the archive, and he was willing to take it. Outside, the sky above the mountains was filled with dragons. Thousands of them surrounded the area. But something strange happened. They did not attack. They landed, slowly, silently. The Dragon Empire had arrived. Varkin stepped forward. The massive dragon looked toward the archive entrance. For the first time, he was not looking at enemies. He was looking at a mystery. Kaeldar landed beside him. You understand now. Varkin looked at the ancient dragon. Understand what? Kaeldar stared at the archive. The reason we were allowed to find it. Varkin narrowed his eyes. You think this was planned? Kaeldar nodded. The archive was never hidden from us. It was waiting for us. A silence spread among the dragons, because that meant one terrifying possibility. The invasion, the battles, the journey across the galaxy. Everything had happened because the archive wanted all of them here. Inside the archive, Ethan and his team continued deeper. The walls around them showed more secrets. Images of ancient wars, ancient alliances, ancient failures. Then suddenly, one image appeared that made everyone stop. A human, not a modern human. A human from thousands of years ago, standing beside an architect. The two species were working together. Dr. Mitchell could barely speak. Humans and architects. She looked at Ethan. We knew each other. Alaron looked shocked. This should not be possible. The image continued. The human placed a hand on the archive. Then the message appeared. The first contact was not in the future. The first contact was in the past. Ethan stared at the words. Humanity was not discovering the galaxy. The galaxy had discovered humanity long ago. But why? Why would the architects choose Earth? Why would they hide the archive here? The answer appeared slowly. A final message. A message that made everyone stop breathing. Earth was not chosen because of what it has. Earth was chosen because of what it will become. The lights suddenly turned off. Complete darkness. Then a voice whispered from the deepest part of the archive. Not the voice of the architects. Not the voice of the archive. Something else. Something older. You have finally returned. Ethan froze. Returned? But humanity had never been here before. Or had it? The voice continued. The forgotten children have come home. And deep inside the archive, something opened its eyes. The words echoed through the darkness of the archive. You have finally returned. Captain Ethan Cole stood completely still. The voice was not coming from the walls, not from the machines, not from any visible source. It felt like the entire archive itself was speaking. But the most terrifying part was not the voice. It was the meaning behind those words. Returned, not arrived, not discovered. Returned. Ethan looked at Alaron. The Sentinel was staring into the darkness ahead. For the first time, he looked completely lost. Alaron! The Sentinel did not respond. Ethan, Dr. Mitchell whispered. She pointed toward the walls. New symbols were appearing. Thousands of them. But this time, they were not showing civilizations. They were showing memories. Images of a planet. Earth, not the Earth they knew. A different Earth. An ancient Earth. A world before cities. Before modern humans. Before recorded history. And in those images, something impossible appeared. A massive structure standing on the planet. The archive. But it was not hidden underground. It was on the surface. And humans were standing around it. Not as enemies. Not as visitors. As guardians. Ethan's eyes widened. That cannot be real. Dr. Mitchell moved closer. Those are humans. Alaron finally spoke. Yes. His voice was quiet. Those are your ancestors. The team looked at him. Nobody understood. Humanity had always believed its history was limited to Earth. But these images showed something different. Humanity had a forgotten chapter. A chapter hidden from itself. Ethan looked at the ancient humans on the wall. What happened to them? The archive answered before anyone else could. They chose to forget. The voice shook the chamber. The images changed. The ancient humans disappeared. The archive was sealed. The memories were erased. And the world continued without knowing the truth. Dr. Mitchell looked shocked. Someone removed this from our history. Alaron nodded. Yes. Who? The Sentinel looked toward the darkness. The architects. Silence filled the chamber. The same beings who had created the greatest knowledge in the galaxy had hidden humanity's own past. But why? Why would they erase the memory of an entire species? Before Ethan could ask, another message appeared. The First Guardians failed. Everyone froze. First Guardians? The meaning was impossible to ignore. Humanity was not discovering the archive for the first time. They were returning to something they once protected. The voice continued. The second chapter begins now. Suddenly, the chamber changed. A massive door opened ahead. Beyond it was a room unlike anything they had seen before. At the center was a glowing sphere. Floating, silent, powerful. Energy moved around it like a living storm. Alaron looked at it. His expression changed. What is that? Dr. Mitchell looked at him. You don't know? The Sentinel slowly shook his head. No. That answer frightened everyone. Because if the Sentinels did not know, then nobody did. Ethan walked closer. The moment he approached the sphere, it reacted. The entire archive awakened. The lights became brighter. The walls moved. The ancient systems activated. And a message appeared. Identity confirmed. Everyone looked at Ethan. He stepped back. What? The archive continued. Genetic memory restored. A cold feeling moved through Ethan. Genetic memory. The archive was not recognizing him as a person. It was recognizing something inside him. Something inherited. Something ancient. Dr. Mitchell looked at Ethan. Captain. But Ethan was not listening. Because the sphere had started showing images. His own images. Not from his life. From someone else's. A soldier. A warrior. A guardian. Someone who looked like him. Standing beside the architects. Millions of years ago. Ethan's breathing slowed. The impossible truth was appearing in front of him. The archive did not choose him by accident. It did not choose him because he was a soldier. It chose him because something from the past was still alive inside him. Something connected to the First Guardians. The chamber suddenly shook violently. A warning appeared. Hostile force detected. Everyone turned. The archive showed an image. Someone had entered. Not humans. Not Sentinels. Not dragons. Something else. Something that had been waiting outside. Alaron looked at the screen. His face changed. No. Ethan immediately noticed. You know them. The Sentinel slowly stepped back. Because the one thing he feared had finally happened. The forgotten civilization had returned. The civilization that even the architects feared. The voice of the archive echoed again. The original creator has arrived. The lights inside the chamber turned red. The entire archive began locking down. Outside, the sky above her changed. The massive object above the planet opened. And for the first time, the beings inside revealed themselves. The dragons stopped moving. The Sentinels prepared their weapons. Human forces watched in fear. Because everyone understood the same thing. The war they thought they were fighting was never the real war. The real enemy had just arrived. The lights inside the archive turned completely red. The warning symbols appeared across every wall. And the ancient voice repeated the same message again and again. The original creator has arrived. Captain Ethan Cole looked toward the entrance of the chamber. For the first time since entering the archive, he felt something he could not explain. It was not fear of an enemy. It was a feeling of standing in front of something that existed before everything he knew. The ground started shaking violently. The energy sphere at the center of the chamber began spinning faster. The archive was reacting to the arrival of the unknown civilization. Dr. Mitchell watched readings on her device, but the numbers made no sense. The energy level was beyond anything the human mind could calculate. This is not a ship, she whispered. This is something else. Alaron slowly moved toward the chamber entrance. His eyes remained focused on the darkness outside. Ethan noticed his expression. You know what is coming. The Sentinel stayed silent for a few seconds. Then he answered, I know what they were called. Ethan waited for the explanation. The origin, the name spread to the team like a shockwave. The origin, the beings that existed before the architects. The ones who created the technology that even the architects could not understand. The ones who disappeared from history. Alaron continued. The architects were not creators. They were students. They discovered the knowledge of the origin and tried to understand it, but they failed. Ethan looked confused. Then why did they create the archive? Alaron looked toward the glowing sphere, because they wanted someone else to finish what they started. Suddenly, the entire archive changed. The walls opened and showed a massive recording from millions of years ago. The architects appeared on the screen, but they were not the powerful beings everyone imagined. They looked desperate. They looked like they were running from something. A message appeared. We searched for answers. We found something we were not ready to face. The recording continued. The architects discovered the origin, but the knowledge they gained was too powerful. They realized that some truths were dangerous even for advanced civilizations. So they created the archive and hid the knowledge across the galaxy. But they did not hide it forever. They were waiting for the right civilization, a civilization that could learn the truth without destroying itself. Ethan looked at the image of ancient Earth. Then he understood. Earth was never random. Humanity was never just a small species on an unknown planet. The archive had been waiting for humans to reach this moment. But why? Why humanity? Before Ethan could find the answer, the chamber doors opened. A figure entered. Everyone immediately prepared their weapons. But the figure did not attack. It simply walked forward. Tall, silent, covered in ancient armor that looked older than any technology they had ever seen. The air around it changed. Even Alaron stepped back. The figure looked at Ethan. Not at humanity. Not at the soldiers. Only Ethan. Then it spoke. You carry the memory. Ethan froze. What memory? The figure continued walking. The memory of the first Guardians. Dr. Mitchell looked at Ethan. The same words. Again, first Guardians. The figure raised its hand. The energy sphere moved toward Ethan. Nobody could stop it. The moment it touched him, the entire archive activated. Millions of images entered Ethan's mind. Ancient battles. Lost civilizations. The first humans who protected the archive. The first contact with the architects. The reason humanity was chosen. And then Ethan saw something that changed everything. A human standing before the origin. A human who looked exactly like him. The same face. The same eyes. The same mark on his hand. Ethan stepped back in shock. No. The figure looked at him. Your bloodline remembers what your mind forgot. The truth was finally revealed. The archive did not choose Ethan because of his position. It did not choose him because he was a soldier. It chose him because the last Guardian never truly disappeared. The Guardian continued through generations, waiting until the day the archive opened again. Outside, the dragons and Sentinels watched as a massive wave of energy spread across Earth. Varkin looked at the signal. For the first time, even he looked afraid, because he realized something. The Dragon Empire had not found the archive. The archive had found them. Kaeldar whispered one sentence. The war was never about reaching the archive. He looked toward Earth. The war was about waking it. Inside the chamber, the origin turned toward Ethan. The trial has changed. The lights became brighter. The final message appeared. The Guardian has returned. Then the archive revealed the next truth. A truth that would decide the future of every civilization. The enemy you fear is not outside. The enemy has always been within. The chamber went silent, and somewhere deep inside the archive, something began to awaken. The words echoed inside the archive. The enemy has always been within. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved, because everyone understood the meaning behind those words. The greatest threat was not the Dragon Empire. It was not the Sentinels. It was not even the mysterious origin. The real danger was something connected to every civilization that had ever reached for power. Captain Ethan Cole looked at the origin. Then tell us the truth. The figure remained silent. For a moment, it looked at the entire team. Then it answered. The galaxy does not fall because of enemies. It falls because civilizations forget why they were given power. The archive began showing images again. Worlds destroyed. Empires collapsed. Advanced civilizations disappearing. Not because someone defeated them. Because they destroyed themselves. The origin continued. Every civilization reaches the same point. They gain knowledge. They gain power. And then they decide they deserve control. Alaron looked down. Because he knew the words were true. The Sentinels had their own history. The Dragon Empire had its own history, and now humanity was standing at the same path, the same dangerous choice. Ethan looked toward the three symbols. Humanity, Sentinels, Dragons. Then he looked at the fourth symbol. The unknown path, the path that was not a species. It was a choice. What happens now? The Origin looked at him. Now the trial truly begins. The archives suddenly opened a massive chamber beneath them. A bright light appeared from below. The entire mountain started shaking. Outside, every army felt the change. The dragons looked toward the ground. The Sentinels activated their scanners. Human forces prepared for anything. Then the archive sent a message across the planet. All participants must choose. The message appeared on every screen. Unity, control, destruction. 3 options, 3 futures. Everyone understood. The archive was not testing power. It was testing decisions. Varkin watched the message from his command ship. His expression was unreadable. For years, he believed power was the only answer. But now even he questioned everything. Kaeldar looked at him. You finally see it. Varkin did not respond, because for the first time, he did. The Dragon Empire had conquered thousands of worlds, but every victory had created another enemy. Every act of control created more resistance. Maybe the dragons were not the rulers of the galaxy. Maybe they were the reason the galaxy needed protection. Inside the archive, Ethan stepped toward the center. The Origin watched him. Your choice will affect every world. Ethan looked back at his team, at Dr. Mitchell, at Alaron, at the soldiers who followed him. Then he looked toward the entrance where dragons waited outside. For a moment, everyone expected him to choose humanity. But Ethan understood something. If he chose only one side, the cycle would continue. The same cycle that destroyed countless civilizations. So he made a different choice. We don't choose one. The chamber became silent. Ethan continued. We choose everyone. Alaron looked surprised. The Origin remained still. Then the archive reacted. The energy around them changed. The fourth symbol became brighter than all others. A new message appeared. Unexpected response. New path created. For the first time in millions of years, the archive had received an answer it did not expect. Outside, the dragon saw the symbol. The Sentinels saw the symbol. And both understood. The old rules were gone. The war had changed. The Origin looked at Ethan. You have passed the first trial. Ethan took a breath. First, the figure looked toward the darkness deeper inside the archive. Yes, there are more. The lights revealed a massive door behind them. A door bigger than anything before. A door that had never opened. Not for humans. Not for dragons. Not for Sentinels. The Origin spoke one final sentence. The first trial tested your choice. The second will test your survival. The door began opening, and from the other side came a sound that made even the Origin silent. Something was coming. Something older than the archive, older than the architects, older than every civilization that had ever existed. Ethan stared into the darkness. The future of the galaxy was no longer about winning a war. It was about surviving what was coming next. The door opened completely, and the final message appeared. The second age has begun.